Never trust appearances, because sometimes the one you dismiss as the lowest can hold the key to your highest healing. It all began on an ordinary Monday morning. Inside the marble-floored lobby of Grayson Industries, a towering glass building in the heart of the city. The staff moved briskly, their polished shoes echoing confidence against the floors. But in the corner, almost invisible, a man in a faded blue uniform pushed a mop. His name was Samuel. Everyone called him the janitor. To most employees, he was just background noise. Someone who cleaned up after their coffee spills or picked up their crumpled papers from the floor. They never wondered about his life, his past, or the heavy silence in his eyes. But on this day, Samuel did something that no one would forget. The story began with Claire Jennings, a middle-aged manager in the company, a woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper tongue. She walked into the lobby, heels clicking, holding the hand of her 10-year-old daughter Lily. Lily was in a wheelchair. Her tiny frame seemed swallowed by the chair, and her legs, thin and unmoving, were covered with a blanket. Despite her condition, her big brown eyes sparkled, searching the world with curiosity, though her mother's face remained stern, guarded, and filled with pain. "Come on, Lily," Claire urged, pulling her closer to the reception area. "I told you not to stare at people." "I wasn't staring, Mom," Lily whispered. I like watching things move. That's all." Her gaze lingered on Samuel, who had just placed his mop aside and pulled a small, worn-out rubber ball from his pocket. For a second, Samuel's tired face softened. He knelt down quietly, watching Lily from across the lobby. Then, without a word, he gently rolled the ball across the shiny floor toward her wheelchair. The ball stopped right in front of her feet. Lily's eyes widened. Her lips curled into the tiniest smile. She reached down, trembling, and lifted the ball into her lap. But before she could even speak, her mother's voice cut like a knife. "What on earth are you doing?" Claire snapped, stepping between Lily and the janitor. Her face flushed with anger. "How dare you throw something at my daughter?" Samuel froze. His mouth opened, then closed. He wanted to explain, but words failed him. "It's not what you think," he said softly. But Claire wasn't listening. She yanked the ball from Lily's hands and tossed it aside. "She's paralyzed," Claire hissed. "Do you think this is funny? To mock her? To roll toys at her when she can't even—" Her voice broke. "She can't even walk." "Mom, stop," Lily whispered, but Claire didn't hear her. By now, the receptionist and several employees had gathered, watching the scene with wide eyes. Claire stood tall, fury blazing. "That's it. You're done here?" She spat at Samuel. "I don't care how long you've been working in this building. You're fired." The words hung heavy in the air. Samuel lowered his head, his calloused hands tightening around the handle of his mop. But he didn't beg, he didn't argue. He just whispered, almost to himself, "I only wanted to help." "Help?" Claire scoffed. "By humiliating her. By tossing your dirty toys at a child who's suffered enough. Get out, right now." Tears filled Lily's eyes as she reached for Samuel, but her mother wheeled her chair around before she could speak. The lobby fell silent, except for the faint squeak of rubber wheels against polished marble. And just like that, the janitor was gone. That night in the Jennings household, the storm wasn't over. Claire paced the living room, her heels tapping against the hardwood floor. "I can't believe the audacity of that man," she muttered. "As if we don't have enough to deal with. As if I don't carry enough pain every single day." Lily sat quietly on the couch, the blanket still over her legs. She fiddled with the small rubber ball. She had somehow managed to keep it hidden in her lap when her mother wheeled her away. "Mom," she whispered. "What?" "Sweetheart." Claire sighed, stopping to look at her. I liked what he did." Claire's face hardened. "Liked it? He was mocking you." "No," Lily said, clutching the ball. "He wasn't. He was playing with me. Nobody does that anymore." Claire's expression flickered, but she quickly shook her head. "Honey, you don't understand. People can be cruel. They pretend to be kind when really they're just laughing at us behind our backs." "But he wasn't laughing," Lily insisted, her voice trembling. "He looked sad, like he knows what?" Claire asked sharply. "What it feels like," Lily whispered. The room grew heavy with silence. Claire turned away, unwilling to let her daughter's words sink in. She didn't want to admit that, just for a moment, when she had seen the janitor kneeling on the floor, there had been something in his eyes, something raw, something familiar. But she pushed it aside. Forget him. Claire said coldly. He's gone, and that's for the best. The next morning, Samuel sat alone on a park bench across the street from the company he had served for almost 12 years. His mop and bucket were gone. His uniform still hung on his thin frame, but it carried no meaning now. He watched the towering glass building, his reflection faintly visible in its windows. He thought about the little girl's smile when she had touched the ball and about the fury in her mother's eyes. Maybe I shouldn't have tried, he murmured to himself. Maybe it's better to stay invisible. But then, his hand brushed against something in his pocket. A folded piece of paper. He pulled it out. It was an old drawing, crayons smudged, colors fading. A drawing of a man holding a ball next to a laughing little girl with pigtails. His daughter. His throat tightened. Emily, he whispered. His past was never far from him, a past he had buried deep, but one that still bled through in quiet moments like this. And though no one at Grayson Industries knew, Samuel had once been far more than just a janitor. Back at the office, whispers spread quickly. Did you hear Claire fired the janitor yesterday? Yeah, she said he mocked her daughter. Can you believe it? Well, maybe he deserved it. He always looked kind of strange. No, I don't know. I saw it happen. He wasn't being mean. He was gentle. By noon, the murmurs had reached the upper floors. And eventually, they reached Alexander Grayson, the CEO himself, a man known for his ruthless efficiency. Alexander was not one to waste time on gossip, but something about the story caught his attention. Perhaps it was the name Samuel. That afternoon, as Alexander rode the elevator down to the lobby, he found himself asking questions. Who was this janitor? He asked the receptionist. Samuel, she replied nervously. He's been here over a decade, always quiet. Never caused trouble. Until yesterday. And what exactly happened? Alexander pressed. The receptionist hesitated. Claire says he mocked her daughter. But sir, I saw it. He just rolled a ball to the little girl. That's all. Alexander's brow furrowed. A ball, a paralyzed child, a man fired after 12 years. Something didn't add up. He decided to investigate. That evening, instead of heading home, Alexander left the building and scanned the streets. He had a feeling Samuel wouldn't be far. And sure enough, across the street, sitting on a worn-out bench, was the janitor himself. Alexander crossed over, his expensive shoes crunching against gravel. Samuel, he said firmly. The janitor looked up, startled. Mr. Grayson, walk with me, Alexander said, and though Samuel hesitated, he rose, his shoulders slumped, and followed the CEO into the quiet of the park. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then Alexander finally asked, tell me the truth. Why did you roll that ball to the girl? Samuel's jaw tightened. He looked away, eyes glistening in the fading sunlight. Because I recognized something, he said quietly. Something I've seen before. Alexander studied him, confused. Recognized what? Samuel turned back slowly, his voice breaking as he spoke. The same thing that took my daughter from me. Alexander froze, his heart skipping. What do you mean? Samuel swallowed hard, clutching the crumpled drawing in his pocket. But before he could answer, Claire's voice rang out behind them, sharp and furious. There you are! What are you doing talking to him? Her heels struck the pavement as she stormed toward them, her daughter's wheelchair trailing behind. Lily's eyes widened as she saw Samuel. Mom, wait, she cried, but Claire silenced her with a glare. You have no right to be here. Claire snapped at Samuel. Stay away from my child. And just as Samuel opened his mouth to finally reveal the truth, the CEO raised a hand. Enough, Alexander said firmly. His eyes shifted between Claire, Lily, and Samuel. I think it's time. He continued slowly. We heard the whole story. The silence that followed was heavy, charged with something unspoken. And in that moment, none of them realized. The truth Samuel was about to reveal would shatter everything they thought they knew. The air hung heavy in the park. Claire's eyes blazed with anger, while Lily gripped her wheelchair armrests, torn between fear and hope. Samuel stood motionless, his face pale, his lips trembling, and Alexander Grayson, the CEO, crossed his arms, his gaze sharp as a blade. You've said enough, Claire, Alexander said firmly. I want to hear from Samuel now. Claire turned on him, shocked. Sir, with all due respect, this man mocked my daughter. No, Alexander cut her off, his voice like stone. I don't think that's the full story. For a moment, the only sounds were the rustling of the trees and Lily's soft breathing. Finally, Samuel spoke, his voice raw. I didn't mock her, he whispered. I wanted to give her hope. The ball wasn't just a toy. It was a memory. Claire scoffed, folding her arms. Hope. You think a rubber ball gives hope to a paralyzed child. But Samuel's eyes were distant, locked on a place no one else could see. It did once, he said softly. For my Emily. Lily tilted her head. Emily. Samuel pulled the crumpled paper from his pocket and unfolded it with trembling hands. It was the drawing, a man with a ball beside a little girl with pigtails. This is her? Samuel said, his voice breaking. My daughter. She was your age once. Bright, curious, she loved when I rolled a ball to her. It was our little game. The air grew still. Claire frowned but didn't speak. Lily stared at the drawing, her eyes wide. What happened to her? Alexander asked quietly. Samuel closed his eyes. His chest rose and fell heavily. She got sick, he whispered. Her legs, they stopped working. Doctors said it was a spinal condition. We tried everything but... His voice cracked. One day, she closed her eyes and never opened them again. The silence was deafening. Even Claire's face softened, if only for a flicker of a second. Samuel clutched the drawing to his chest. I saw Lily that morning, sitting so still in her chair, and I remembered Emily. I thought maybe rolling the ball would bring her the same joy it brought my little girl. Not pity, not mockery, just a moment of play. Lily's lips trembled, her eyes filled with tears. I knew it, she whispered. I knew he wasn't being mean, Mom. But Claire shook her head, her voice cold. That doesn't change anything. You overstepped. You don't know us. You don't know our pain. Enough, Alexander said sharply. His gaze turned to Claire, firm but unreadable. You accused this man of cruelty when all he offered was kindness. Claire's cheeks burned red. You don't understand. You don't know what it's like to watch your child suffer every single day. Her voice cracked on the last word. For the first time, the hardness in her tone faltered, revealing a wound she had long tried to hide. Samuel bowed his head. You're right, I don't know your pain, but I know mine, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. The rawness in his words silenced her. Alexander took a slow breath, then crouched down to face Lily directly. His powerful presence softened as he spoke to her, not as a CEO, but as a man. Lily, he said gently, did Samuel make you feel mocked, or did he make you feel seen? Lily wiped her eyes and whispered, Sheen. Her mother turned away, pressing her hand against her face as tears welled up. For years, she had fought so hard to shield her daughter from pity, from the stares, from the whispers. But in doing so, she had also shielded her from the simplest joys. Samuel knelt down, his voice trembling. I'm sorry, Claire. I should have asked. I never meant to hurt you or her. For a moment, there was almost peace. But then, a shadow crossed Alexander's expression. He straightened slowly, his eyes narrowing. Samuel, he said, his voice low, why have you been a janitor all these years? A man who carries himself the way you do, who speaks the way you just did. That's not the voice of someone who was always invisible. Samuel froze. His hands tightened around the drawing. Claire frowned, confused. What are you talking about? Alexander stepped closer, his gaze piercing. I've seen your face before, years ago. Not in this building. Somewhere else. You weren't in a uniform then. You were, he paused, searching his memory. You were in the news. The color drained from Samuel's face. His lips pressed into a thin line. Claire looked between them, bewildered. The news. What does that mean? Samuel shook his head, backing away. It doesn't matter. That life is gone. But Alexander's voice grew sharper. No, it matters. Because I remember now. His eyes widened with realization. You were the man who... Stop! Samuel shouted, his voice echoing through the park. Lily flinched, but she kept her gaze locked on him. Her small voice cut through the tension. Please, tell us. Samuel's chest heaved. His hands trembled as he lowered the drawing slowly. His eyes glistened, full of ghosts. You really want to know, he whispered. Yes, Lily said softly. Claire crossed her arms tightly, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Alexander stood tall, silent, waiting. Samuel closed his eyes. And then, finally, he spoke. I wasn't always a janitor, he said. I was a doctor, a surgeon. Claire gasped. Alexander repeated, his eyes narrowing. Samuel nodded, his face heavy with shame. One of the best, they said. People trusted me with their lives. Until one day I couldn't save the one life that mattered most. His voice cracked. My Emily. Claire's lips parted in shock. You mean your daughter? Samuel nodded. She needed surgery, a procedure I had performed dozens of times on others. But when it was her, I couldn't. My hands shook. I froze. Another doctor stepped in, but it was too late. She didn't make it. His voice broke. Tears spilled down his face. After that, I walked away from it all. The hospitals, the prestige. I couldn't hold a scalpel again. I took this job as a janitor because it was the only way to disappear. The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Claire's eyes softened, her anger crumbling under the weight of his confession. She looked at Lily, who was staring at Samuel with wide, tear-filled eyes. "You lost her," Lily whispered. Samuel nodded, his shoulders trembling. "And when I saw you, Lily, it was like seeing Emily again. I wasn't mocking you. I was remembering. And hoping maybe I could give you something I couldn't give her. Just a moment of happiness." Tears slid down Lily's cheeks. She clutched the ball in her lap and whispered, "You did." For the first time in years, Samuel allowed himself to smile, even through the tears. But before anyone could speak, Alexander's phone buzzed sharply in his pocket. He frowned, pulling it out, glancing at the screen. His face went pale. "What is it?" Claire asked, her voice tense. Alexander's eyes lifted, dark with urgency. "It's about the company," he said, something serious. "And Samuel." His gaze flicked to the janitor. "It involves you." Samuel's eyes widened. "Me?" Alexander nodded gravely. "Yes, and if what I just read is true, then firing you isn't just a mistake. It's the beginning of something far worse." The group froze. Lily clutched her mother's hand. Claire's heart pounded. And Samuel knew the past he had tried so hard to bury was finally clawing its way to the surface. And what it revealed could destroy them all. The night was colder than usual. The park lights cast long shadows on the path, stretching over the three figures who now stood frozen in the silence. Claire's breath trembled as she held Lily close. Samuel's fists clenched by his side, his eyes darting between the CEO and the phone in Alexander's hand. "What do you mean it involves me?" Samuel finally asked, his voice uneasy. Alexander's face was grim, the glow of his phone reflecting in his eyes. "The hospital, the very one where you worked. They've uncovered something, files from your past surgeries. There's talk about a cover-up." Samuel's heart stopped. Claire's voice cut in, sharp and alarmed. "A cover-up? What are you saying?" Alexander looked at her, then back at Samuel. "I'm saying your name is back in the spotlight, and not for the reasons you want." Samuel shook his head, stepping back. No, that can't be. I left all of that behind. He broke off, his chest tightening. Claire grabbed Lily's chair, protective. "You mean to tell me we've been talking to a disgraced surgeon this whole time?" But Lily turned to her mother, her small voice trembling. "No, Mom, listen to him." Samuel's lips parted, his voice hoarse. "It's true, they called me brilliant once, but after Emily, after I froze in that operating room, the hospital wanted to bury the story. They couldn't risk their reputation. They let me go quietly. I walked away willingly. But I never hurt anyone on purpose." His voice cracked. "I just couldn't heal my own child." The weight of his confession pressed on them all. Claire swallowed hard. "So you've been living in the shadows, sweeping floors, carrying your guilt, while the world forgot your name." Samuel's eyes glistened. The world may have forgotten, but a father never forgets. Alexander paced slowly, deep in thought. His sharp eyes shifted to Lily, who clutched the ball tightly. "And yet, perhaps fate hasn't forgotten you either, Samuel." "What do you mean?" Samuel asked. Alexander crouched down beside Lily, his powerful voice gentler now. "Lily, tell me, how long have you been paralyzed?" Her lips trembled. "Since the accident, a year ago." "Accident?" Samuel echoed, his eyes widening. Claire's voice softened, filled with pain. "A drunk driver hit us. She was pinned in the wreckage. Spinal damage. The doctors said she'd never walk again." Samuel's breath caught. "Which hospital?" Claire hesitated. "City Marks." The name hit Samuel like a blow. His knees almost buckled. That's where I trained, where I worked." Alexander's gaze sharpened. "And, if I'm not mistaken, Samuel, spinal procedures were your specialty." Samuel shook his head fiercely, backing away. "No, I can't. I told you, I don't hold a scalpel anymore. Not after Emily. I can't risk." "But you could." Alexander interrupted firmly. "You can, because while you've been mopping floors, the one person who might still have the skill to help this girl has been hiding in plain sight." Samuel's chest heaved. Don't do this. Don't put that weight on me. The Claire's eyes narrowed, suspicion flaring. Wait, are you saying he could help Lily? That this man I fired could? Alexander stood tall, his gaze unwavering. I'm saying he might be her only chance. The words cut through the night like a blade. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Samuel, could you really? Samuel's throat closed. His hands trembled violently. He saw Emily's face, her little pigtails, her laughter echoing in his ears. He saw the sterile white lights of the operating room, the moment his hands had frozen, the moment he had failed. I can't promise, he whispered. I can't promise I won't fail again. Claire's eyes blazed. You failed your daughter, and now you want me to trust you with mine. Absolutely not. But Lily's voice rose, breaking through her mother's anger. Mom, please. She gripped the ball, clutching it to her chest. No one else even tries to play with me. No one else looks at me like I'm still me. He did. And I trust him. The Claire's breath caught. Tears spilled down her cheeks. For years she had built walls of iron around her daughter, protecting her from pain, but also unknowingly, protecting her from hope. Samuel fell to his knees before Lily's chair, tears streaming down his face. If I do this, it won't be easy. It'll take everything I have. And still I might fail. But if you're willing to let me try. His voice broke. I'll give you everything I've got. Lily nodded, her small hand reaching out to touch his. And for the first time since Emily's death, Samuel felt the faintest flicker of courage inside his broken heart. Weeks passed. The hospital board was hesitant. Claire battled her doubts. Alexander used his influence to push the case forward. And Samuel walked into an operating room for the first time in over a decade. His hands trembled at first, but when Lily smiled at him from her hospital bed before being wheeled in, he whispered to himself, "For you, Emily." And then, the surgeon inside him returned. The surgery was long, exhausting. The kind of battle that tested not only skill but spirit. Sweat drenched Samuel's brow, his breath came ragged. But his hands, steady now, steady as they had once been, moved with precision born from both skill and love. When it was over, he staggered out of the room, drained, broken but alive. Claire was waiting in the hallway, her face pale with fear. Well, she whispered. Samuel collapsed into a chair, his eyes wet with tears. It's up to her body now. But I did everything. Everything I could. For days they waited. Claire barely left Lily's side. Samuel sat quietly in the corner, clutching the rubber ball like a prayer. And then, one morning, Lily stirred. Her legs twitched. Her tiny toes moved beneath the blanket. Mom, she whispered, her voice trembling. I felt that. Claire's breath hitched. Tears streamed down her face as she called for the nurse. Samuel, standing in the doorway, pressed his hand to his mouth as his knees gave out. For the first time in years, hope, real hope, blossomed in his chest. Months later, on a warm spring afternoon, the Grayson Industries lobby was filled with hushed voices. Employees gathered, watching in awe as Claire walked through the glass doors with Lily beside her, but not in a wheelchair. Step by shaky step, holding onto her mother's hand, Lily walked across the marble floor. Every step was wobbly, uncertain, but her smile lit up the entire building. And in her other hand, she clutched the same rubber ball. The crowd erupted into applause, some weeping openly. Samuel stood at the back, still in his blue uniform. His mop rested by his side. He didn't want recognition. He didn't want applause. He only wanted this moment. But Lily spotted him. Her eyes lit up. "Mr. Samuel!" she cried. The crowd parted as she ran, still stumbling, but running straight into his arms. He caught her, holding her tightly, tears streaming down his face. "You did it," she whispered. "No," Samuel said softly, his voice shaking. "We did it." Claire approached slowly, her eyes glistening. For the first time, she looked at Samuel not with suspicion or anger, but with gratitude. "I was wrong about you," she said, her voice trembling. "So wrong. You gave me back my daughter. You gave her a future." Samuel shook his head gently. No, she already had a future. She just needed someone to remind her she could still reach for it. Claire pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. And Alexander Grayson, watching it all, stepped forward, his commanding voice echoing through the lobby. This man was once cast aside, misjudged, forgotten. But today, let us all remember, greatness isn't in the titles we carry, but in the hearts we choose to serve with. From this day forward, Samuel is not our janitor. He is our hero. The lobby roared with applause. Samuel's knees buckled, his heart overwhelmed. For the first time since Emily's death, he allowed himself to believe he was no longer just a broken man. He was whole again. That evening, Samuel sat on the same park bench where everything had begun. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. Beside him sat Lily, tossing the rubber ball gently into his hands. "You know," she said with a grin, "for someone who mops floors, you're really good at saving lives." Samuel chuckled softly, his eyes shining. "Maybe that's what life is about, Lily. Cleaning up the mess and giving people a chance to shine again." They both laughed, the sound carrying into the fading light, and as the ball rolled back and forth between them, Samuel looked to the heavens, whispering through his tears, "This one's for you, Emily."